Welcome to the Lifeline, a production of Simply BJE. The goal of this podcast is to build, inspire, and to empower our listeners through conversations on business, leadership, and mental health. We invite you to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and at www.simplybje.com/The Lifeline. Now, let's tune in for today's episode. Top of the day, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another episode of The Lifeline. We're your host, life strategist and entrepreneur, Bo Powell, social media influencer and owner of the For Real brand, Lindsberg Petway, and yours truly, leadership consultant and mental health advocate, Barry J. Elliott. You can visit us at www.simplybje.com/The Lifeline. Do us a favor, like and subscribe to our content on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, and then share it with a family member, a friend, or a coworker. Today, we have the two Joshuas with us, the two powerhouses who have defied the odds to become world changers, both of whom are active in the community and active in ministry. Josh Proby, based out of Charlotte, North Carolina, is a minister, author, speaker, business owner, and founder of Peace for Poverty, a nonprofit organization devoted to posturing young people for business ownership and best business practices. Then we have, certainly last but not least, Joshua Roberson of Detroit, Michigan, who holds a BS in finance. Mr. Roberson is a deputy director for the City of Detroit Department of Neighborhoods. He is also a servant leader in policy, finance, and community development. He has a tremendous passion for building communities, shaping equitable policies, and empowering others through financial education. He also serves as a young adult pastor at Abundant Life Christian Center in Redford, Michigan. So today, Josh and Josh, how are you fellas doing?
Blessed, man.
Blessed. Yeah, blessed. I echo that. Blessed.
Welcome back. We're glad to have you. This was not in our plan initially, but it was God's plan. So we're excited to have you. So let's talk. We don't really have a lot of time, but we have a lot of ground to cover. But Proby and J. Robe, talk to the listeners about, because they didn't see the previous or hear our previous conversations, for those who may not have heard them, give them a quick snapshot of your background, the things you experienced as children.
You want to go, Rob, or you want me to go?
No, I can go.
Okay.
And then we'll save the best for last.
Nah.
So man, just really briefly, a young man born in the city of Detroit kind of reminds you of Timothy in the Bible, raised by his grandmother and his mother. Grandmother was 38 years old. My mother was 15 when she had me, freshman in high school. Can you imagine graduating as a senior in high school with a 4-year-old?
Wow.
Just so interesting. You know, grew up in impoverished circumstances, man. You know, I know what the Goodwill boxes for Christmas experience is. I know what the bridge card. I know food stamps when it was actually stamps. It was actually coupons that you written out.
Yeah, I remember those.
So I have experienced that, man, and it has shaped and formed my ministry, how I move throughout the world, and the Lord, because I'm a man of faith, offered supplement. You know, not having a single mother, father. My father was 17 when I was born. And, certain things you can't blame certain people for, you know what I'm saying? Immaturity, lack of knowledge, lack of having a father himself. There's certain things that I have seen, and as an adult, I come to understand more of.
That's good. That's good.
It's real good. Very similar, man. Very similar. Grandmother raised me. Mother had me at an extremely young age. At that time, my mother was actually sold into prostitution early.
Wow.
Which is why I ended up with my grandmother. And that in itself, always wanting to, be with my mom, never knew my father. So just growing up in those type of situations, which I later found out, why my mother wasn't in my life, which was a streamline of addiction. And not necessarily knowing that until later, the addiction was to numb the actual lifestyle that she was forced into at 14, 15 years old. So it was it was a long journey for me, man. Long journey of accepting that, long journey of forgiving that, long journey of even understanding that. Going to school and, you know, not having your mom, not having your father, watching your grandmother be abused. But, you know, one thing that did happen, and that was that my grandmother instilled the word of God in me. Regardless of what we went through, regardless of what happened, she let me know that there is a God. And till this day, my grandmother is the very reason why my faith in Jesus Christ is so strong. Because I just watched her go through so much, watched my mother go through so much. So yeah, definitely similar pains and struggles that we had to wrap our heads around at such a young age, but really didn't get a chance to really understand what the extent of that was until we got older.
Wow. That's powerful. First of all, gentlemen, I want to say thank you for not giving up. I want to say thank you for finding the courage to listen to that inner man, which was God, you know, telling you that you had a future. You both have been very open about where you come from, and we respect that here at the Lifeline Podcast, because we're very open with our own issues and situations. But tell us, how did your upbringing shape you in your younger years, and how has that experience influenced you to become the man that you are now? Because you both are doing some positive, great things in the world. We'll start with J. Rowe.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would say, again, being raised by a mother and a grandmother in the church, similar to Josh, you know, I've never been afraid of a mic. I've never been afraid of people. I've never been afraid of talking in front of crowds. Even, you know, the years that I was at the elementary school, you know, I can recall, you know, being chosen to sing a solo or, you know, say a Easter speech or, you know, so I just, for some reason, there was just this boldness in me at a young age, being in church. Always, you know, we had the Christmas or the concerts or whatever, and they was always picking Josh to close it out. You close it out, you gonna kill it at the end. And so, you know, my mother and my grandmother, you know, they just raised me to be just bold, not afraid, not ashamed, never been shy, always been personable, friendly, you know, just you know, everybody loved Josh type of thing. And so just being able to be that, my mother and my grandmother just taught me to treat people with respect, treat people with kindness, and always operate from a place of empathy. I think my background causes me to be more empathetic towards people, even in my current job, working for the city of Detroit. It has helped me, man. You know, we have 208 neighborhoods, and you know, I lived being young and living in an impoverished situation. We always were moving, always renting, every couple of years, going to different houses, and so it has been actually. I pull from that. It's an advantage because when I'm out in the neighborhoods, I've been in this neighborhood. I used to live in this district. You know, I know what it's like to take the bus, all of the buses. And I didn't take it for fun. I took it because I had to get there. Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, when somebody is complaining about the bus, I feel that because I know what it's like to be standing on the side of the road and the bus pass you up because it's full. Or they, you know, it's wintertime like it is now, and the bus, you know, spray some water on you because you're too close to the sidewalk. You know, when people, that empathy, man, I think being raised by a mother and a grandmother, they drilled that in me to never think too highly of yourself.
I love that, man. I love that. For me, it was just my grandma, man, her strength, her fight. I watched my grandmother be beat, watched my grandmother be shot by an alcoholic, you know, and get right back up and just be like, hey, this what we doing. My grandmother was one of the very first African-American coal miners. So she was a woman of God and wasn't going to play about it either. You know what I mean? So her strength, I see my grandmother's resilience every day, every single day, the moving and everything like that. I think in our culture, even more growing up, what I come to learn in later on is that in different cultures, they've learned how to mimic that traumatic experience of not being stable. Right. I learned that in incarceration. So when I was incarcerated, I would always move from one camp. The moment I got to one camp after being there for 4 or 5 months, they moved me. After I'm there for 4 or 5 months, they moved me. After I'm there for 4 or 5 months, it was just when you thought you were getting comfortable, a move happened. And in our culture, unconsciously, that's a traumatic experience because we was always moved from our grandmother to our sister, to our brother, to our cousin, to whoever. And in that progression, I think that has affected even some of my relationships growing up. Anytime anything seems to get a little bit too comfortable in previous times, I'm moving, whether it was a relationship, a friendship, or anything like that. So growing up, those unstable places created a traumatic experience in my mind that if it ever got too comfortable, I had to move. If it ever got too close to me, I had to move. And I had to grow out of that, and I grew out of that, of course, experiencing that and realizing that that wasn't the necessary case. I mean, my grandmother had to move because we didn't have the money. Not necessarily because it was anything, but I learned that, sometimes other cultures and other systems, they adopt what our experiences are and recreate them in different forms. So my growing up just allowed me to really see things differently, man. But one thing that will never be denied, and that is the word of God. And my grandmother, whether anything happened, we was going to church every single day. Choir meeting, usher meeting, board meeting. She ain't even had to be on the meeting, but we there. But we there. So it was that consistency that out of everything else that was painful that stuck with me and actually allowed me to be who I am today.
Wow.
I want to go back to something you said, Proby. This is a little off script, but one of the things you said that really stood out, and you repeated it a couple of times, you said how our cultures, other cultures have kind of adopted our traumatic experience and recreated that. Can you talk about that a little bit more? Which clarify that and expound on that if you would.
I think in a lot of cases, because as a culture, we've been crying so long for information, right? We just didn't have the information. We didn't have the information. We didn't have the information. We didn't have the information. So while we're crying for that, even though God said in his word, I believe Proverbs 10:9 says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And also in Proverbs, it says the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. So instead of understanding that, not in the necessarily scared fear, but in a reverence, right? In a respect, that those are the two things that have to be, God has to be respected in order to receive true wisdom and true knowledge. But in a world that we live in, it's just, we didn't have the information. So our counterparts in different cultures was like, you know what? We're going to give them Facebook. We're going to give them Instagram. We're going to give them YouTube. We're going to give them so much information that they have no clue on how to apply it. So we just going to throw it at them. They've been asking for it, so we just going to give it to them, right? They've been asking for the financial. We just going to give it to them on every platform to where it's so much information that it can't even be properly applied. So we become stagnant in knowledge minus application. So sometimes we have to be very careful in how we're asking for things. And even when we get in certain positions, we have to know how not only to obtain the knowledge, but also understand how to apply it for the people, like you said, that come up in the neighborhoods that we come from. Because some of us, we don't know that lingo. We don't know that conversation. But we have to learn that through our traumatic experiences, cultures, systems, and other places are always going to try to manipulate that truth and put us at a disadvantage. And we can't cry wolf at that time, We have to know that our wisdom and knowledge comes from God, and then we have to know how to be responsible and carry those things back to our neighborhoods, our people, and love on them the way that it's supposed to, and apply it the way it's supposed to.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And it's interesting, man, because both of you guys, despite your backgrounds, are very grounded, and in how you approach life, have a lot of wisdom with that. So it seems like you've gleaned a lot from those experiences, a lot of positive things. But was there ever a point in your life where you guys were just really angry because of what you didn't get in your youth? And if so, what brought you to a place of not allowing that anger or bitterness to hold you hostage and hold you back?
So I would say, if I'm being absolutely honest and transparent, those moments happen throughout my life all the time.
Wow.
Because whenever you embark on a new thing as a man, it's like, man, if somebody just would have told me, or if I would have,
Yep.
if I would have had somebody that could, like, so even I'm expecting it, to be absolutely honest, I'm expecting it to happen when I become a father, when I become a husband. If there are going to be times throughout my entire life where it's going to be times of anger and frustration because, you know, if I would have, quote unquote, had a father, it could have got me more prepared. Again, being honest and transparent, even when it comes to when I was younger, even when it comes to driving, learning how to change a tire, learning how to tie my tie. Now, the Lord was merciful and kind to me by putting men in my life that taught me how to do those things. But it becomes more frustrating, even dealing with women, talking to women, being respectful. There's a difference between a woman or your mother, your grandmother teaching you how to treat a woman and talk to a woman, then also having that man figure. There is a constant imbalance, constant, because God made it for us to be raised by a woman and a man, right? Because there are things we get from both that the other one cannot provide, and so those are aggressive moments, those angry moments happen throughout my entire life, and they happen in spurts. I don't allow them to take it over, take me over, but it is just another opportunity for the comforter to come and comfort and also teach me a way. And again, throughout my entire life, the Lord has just provided supplements, just men in my life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime that I learned something from, and I may never talk to them again ever in life. Or I have men in my life who have been there from the beginning, or who entered into my life in adulthood, or even my contemporaries, young men who had fathers who were able to teach me things. They my age, but they taught me things that they learned from their father. And so it's just I'm really grateful for that. But I think, like, to answer your question, Bo, that type of stuff happens throughout my entire life, and I think it will continue to happen. But it's about how you handle it.
I respect your honesty. I respect that. And I think it's okay to admit that. And I think self-awareness brings healing. So I think that's great. Yeah.
Right.
For sure. I'm in total agreement, man. There's a constant frustration there, bro. Just because of certain things that weren't there. And certain things that you still figuring out that you never had a chance to measure it against anything. So you just doing it. You know what I mean? I remember watching my mom change the tire, and I couldn't help because I ain't know. You know what I'm saying? And there's an internal frustration that you feel because you're like, I should know this. But then there's this I would say this masking that has to be put on that you're okay with not knowing when internally you're frustrated. You know what I mean? And I think that growing up without a father and having to piece things together, and I think I've eliminated my frustration by being willing to be taught by various people that come in my life.
Yep.
I think I've eliminated that. I think not completely, because every new venture that you go upon, as you just said, is going to present challenges that you like, man, I know I could have known that if I would have had this, you know what I mean? I would be lying if I said that that wasn't true. But now, because I was so quick to shun people because of the pain, now I'm more embracing, especially to men, being molested by a man. That took a long time for me, bro. A long, long time for me to really even look and embrace anything, which is why I did rob and why I did, because I was angry. I was frustrated. You know what I'm saying? Because before I could even know how to protect myself, somebody was taking something from me. You know what I'm saying? At a young age. So it's just like, now that I'm old enough, now I'm a take. Now that it can't happen to me.
Yep.
Now I'm gonna do this in this form. So now, I asked God during my whole prison time to soften my heart. You know what I mean? And now, I allowed to cry at a drop of a dime now. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, especially with tears of joy, because I remember when I ain't have no tears.
Right.
I remember when I didn't feel. I remember those times. So now, even getting on the podcast with, 4 other strong brothers, man, I embrace that. I love that. You know what I mean? Because it's a rare thing for me, and I know that it's God showing me that this is the place where you feel safe. So frustration is not your escape.
Wow. Let me say something. No, go ahead, Josh.
I wanted to quickly, I felt like this needed to be said. I want to help somebody, some young guy that's going to listen to this podcast too, because even as it pertains to dating, sometimes when you're dating, what I've experienced is dating a woman who has had a father in her life and has a certain expectation of how her father has treated her, right? But you come into a place where you may not be as prepared because you didn't have a father that treated you or taught you. Even living with a mother who we always lived in apartments. When it comes down to cutting grass, I never had to cut grass,
right?
Because we was always in apartments,
That's
right?
good.
So now in my adulthood, I had to learn. Now again, I had an uncle that helped me learn how to cut grass and edge, and I'm pretty good at it. But again, dating, I have seen, some deficiency sometimes because of, the lack of having that father figure in your life. So I want to encourage a young man, get connected to a mentor, get connected to people around you. Don't get away from that feeling of inadequacy, and just understand and be aware that you didn't get certain things, and that it's available to you in different forms.
Right.
And it could be as simple as, because he brought up something with dating, and he brought a young lady to the dealership. And just the interaction between him and her, I had to have a conversation with Josh because I just didn't feel that that was the right vibe for him.
Yep.
Am I right?
Yep.
And that conversation, that was, 20 minutes at the most?
Yep.
But just taking that particular perspective of bringing that person around somebody that you know and trust. And that wasn't even his purpose. They were coming up there for some car stuff. But the Lord told me to say, Josh, what's up with her? I don't know about that one, Josh. And he looked at me like, Coach, what you talking about? Josh, I don't know about that one.
Yeah.
I know you. I don't know about that one. So it does make a difference. And if I can jump in, I know Barry has a very profound point. But as I was listening to these two gentlemen, my father died when I was 2. So, and I heard you guys express anger. So I was listening and doing a total rewind of my life to see if I was ever angry, because I kind of just flowed with it. And I was trying to just see, was I ever mad? Was I ever upset? I always used to say, well, I don't know this because I didn't have a dad. Or, I expressed those same concerns. And what I didn't know, I tried to find out on my own. And then my mom forced me to learn different things, cutting grass and all that. But I really had to do and I don't know if I'm done doing that backtrack to see if I was angry. And I thank you guys for that one because, it might be some internal stuff still there. But you will, when you find your wife and when you have kids, Josh, you will have certain moments because I've experienced those myself in this particular life that I'm living now as a husband, as a father of three boys. And God gave me three. And sometimes I do too much because I didn't have. But I'm really, you guys, sparked something with that anger.
But Pete, I think possibly for you, I think it may have been more of a grieving thing than maybe anger because your father died when you were young.
Right.
So I think it's more of a grief thing. And connecting to what I was going to say, and that was a great segue actually, there's some studies about trauma is that trauma doesn't just affect you one time, one traumatic experience. So for instance, if a young lady loses her mother at 5 years old, she grieves as a 5 year old, but then she grieves again as a senior in high school when her mother's not there. Then she grieves again on her wedding day when her mother's not there. And so at every monumental point in her life, she's grieving. And so what you guys are talking about is the very same thing. Every time you get to a pivotal point where you know that the presence of a father or the influence of a father could have made a difference, you're grieving, and anger can be a form of grief. You're grieving what you didn't have. So I get that.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah.
I got a question, and we might know the answer because we just expressed not having dad there. But looking back on your journey, if you had the opportunity to change one thing, one moment from your past, would you take it? Number one, and then what would it be, and why would you change it? Let's go with JP.
For me, I don't think there's too much that I would change.
Wow.
And the reason why I wouldn't change it is because it helped shape me. It helped shape me to exactly what I needed to be. If I change it, then I'm kind of saying, God, you didn't get that part right.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? And he can't.
Even though those decisions wasn't yours.
Even though the decisions wasn't mine.
Okay.
Because all things work for the good of those who love the Lord, who are called according to his purpose. So I know that it sounds cliche and the right thing, but I truly, as I look back over it, every single standpoint of my life, watching my grandmother be abused, not being there with my mother, my father not being there, doing 12 years in prison, coming home, getting married, getting a divorce, every single step of my life has been me figuring it out, and me leaning on God to understand. There's so many times I felt like giving up, so many times that right in the midst of giving up of the divorce, I remember when I had my divorce and my mom came to me and said, son, are you prepared for the consequences that come with that? And of course I'm like, yeah, mom, I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. But I wasn't ready for my daughter, for me to be picking up my daughter and her saying, why can't I go with you and mommy? Wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready for the things that came up, the coming home, having a 700 credit score, dropping down to a 5 because I had to take on all the debt to rebuild my life without being able to go back to what I knew. The challenges that came with being renewed in my mind to know that I can't take you back, but I can take you forward. To know that I can truly be forgiven, to know. So I wouldn't change too many things because, those things have shaped me to be greater. It's part of what's helped birth my purpose to be even stronger. And to trust God with it, to have an organization that's the only one in the nation that's helping men and women fix their credit and have a business and have a life before they get out of prison. Wow. Restoring communities, youth, starting businesses at a young age. Everything that I went through, I'm actually the example in real time and relatability the same way Christ was, so that they can look at it and say, I can do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The tattoos that I got tattoos everywhere. You wouldn't think that. But in the time of me using it in the bad way, God said, I'm going to use all of that for good. It's going to be a conversation starter. You know, so it's just so many different things that sometimes when I look back on them, even when I begin to say, oh, I could have done that differently, God be like, no, you are wonderfully made. And I made you exactly how it needed to be. And every mistake is going to be turned out for the good. So I wouldn't necessarily change things. And there's times that when I get in them low and tough moments, I'll be like, man, I should have done that differently. Or man, I could have, you know, but those are quick thoughts to try to alleviate whatever I'm getting ready to experience. But in hindsight, 2020, I wouldn't change anything because I know God is carefully guiding me through each experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I would say I wouldn't change anything either per se, because I also know that there is protection that comes with some of this stuff. Who knows if my father would have been in my life, would I have been, you know, a cusser, a womanizer? You know what I'm saying? My dad has 7 children by 6 different baby mothers. And I have a brother. My birthday is May 10th. My brother's birthday is May 21st in the same year. 2 different mamas. And so 5 of us out of the 7, our birthdays are all in May. So I teased my father. I said, "What is it about you having sex in August or September? What is that?" What is that? But you know, it's just who would have known? Who would have known how I would have turned out if certain things would have happened? But I will say this: I will say that I always wish that I would have gotten information earlier. If I can change things, if I could change anything, it's just the gathering of knowledge earlier. Whether it be financially, spiritually, whatever, just enlightenment earlier that could have kept me from maybe certain mistakes or things like that. That would probably be the only thing that I would have changed.
That's good. That's good.
That's a powerful question. Bo.
Yeah.
I would like to hear Bo and Barry's answer to that question.
That's the devil.
No, I'm saying because
that's good. That's
you
good.
think about it. I mean, we all are in some way in that perspective. And I thought about this as they were talking. It was like having my dad. But if he was here, would I be who I am? You know what I mean? So, but what would you change?
You know, well, interestingly enough, just as they were talking earlier, you know, even before you presented that question, I was just thinking about their journey. How, you know, their perspective, you know, you realize that if you truly believe that God is sovereign and that he really has his hand on your life, you know, my thing is too, you know, I've went through various challenges. I won't, you know, go through those this morning, but, you know, I've experienced the, you know, lack of having a father figure in my life. You know, I watched my dad die in mid-conversation we were having when I was a teenager. So after never having been in my life, the only good conversation we had, he died in the middle of that conversation. So by not having a dad, and then even being raised by a mom where church was the central mission, but not the attention necessary in a home. So that creates different types of, we call those wounds, or now that we have the attachment theories and all that stuff. But to say nonetheless, all those experiences, even, you know, going through divorce and all that stuff, you know, all those experiences have shaped me who I am today. And that's kind of given me the drive to continue to grow as a man. And so, you know, we all have our journeys. And so as I was listening to those brothers earlier, I says, man, you know, you can just kind of see how God was just shaping and molding them to become the men they are today, so they can play their role in whatever agenda he has. And I love that. You know, like I said, you know, you guys are extremely grounded. I love your humility, the good humility that's, hey man, God, I trust what you're doing in my life, and so I can wake up every single day grateful. And I believe that's a great big reason why God has continued to bless you guys and to give you favor in what you do. And my prayer is that He continues to bless you guys and elevate you and give you the favor necessary for you guys to, accomplish whatever you guys are looking to accomplish. But yeah, I wouldn't change anything about my life. Obviously looking at it says, hey, I would do this a little different. I would do that a little bit different. I'll do that a little bit different. But again, it wouldn't have forced me into this place of becoming the man I am today. So that would be my answer to that, Petway.
Okay.
So my answer is a dichotomy, right? So there's part of me that says I wouldn't change anything because the things that I went through taught me humility. And if I had not gone through and made the stupid mistakes I made, I would not be as humble as I am, and gracious, and also extending mercy to other people because of how I've needed the mercy of God. But then on the other side, there are some things I'm like, yeah, I would change that. Like I would change cheating on my high school sweetheart. I would change cheating on a young lady I was dating because they were both wife material. Um, I would change the fact that I was so imbalanced as a young person, and that and I use church as I love Jesus, unashamed of that. But I think for a long time, church for me was an anesthetic. I used pain to anesthetize pain instead of dealing with pain. And so I think those are some of the things I would have changed.
And I can agree. I can agree with that too. The things I would change is the decisions I made that hurt other people.
Hurt other people, yeah. There are a lot of women.
Yeah, that shouldn't have, shouldn't have been hurt. I mean, so just because of those things.
And backtrack and losing my virginity at 15. That's crazy. That's too young.
That wasn't part of God's plan.
That wasn't God's plan. That wasn't the will of God. In Christ Jesus concerning me. That was me. It wasn't to do me. So
he still knows how to use those things.
Yeah,
absolutely. All things work. Romans 8:28 in full effect. But I think our decisions complicate our life unnecessarily.
Yeah.
But Isaiah 55:8, for my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are my ways your ways. The Lord says, for as high as the heavens is higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your thoughts. So when we think about the lives that we lived, it was preparing for the lives that God needed to touch through us.
No doubt.
Because God touches people through people. So we had to go through what we went through so we can do this right here. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I just, we all are here for a purpose. And sometimes, we think maybe what we do is a purpose, but again, like you're saying, to your point, Petway, God's ways are higher, his thoughts are higher and stuff like that. So, whatever conquest or things that we've done is shaping us to fulfill a certain purpose. Again, in this world, for God's total agenda to work, It's just what I believe with that. Because if he's sovereign, then there's nothing out of his purview. He's not caught off guard, or like as my pop says, he's not caught off guard. But he knows how to orchestrate and move things to accomplish his plan and purpose for our lives. So, and for his purpose. So anyway, not to get too far off in the weeds, but I want to just say this because I know both of you guys, and I think all of us have a shared experience of not really having a father figure in our lives. And so what would you say to men who have children and maybe they are absent, either physically or emotionally? What would be your conversation? What would you say to those guys?
For me, I would tell them just to continue to be encouraged and don't be afraid of what you don't know. For me, watching, my daughter was born when I was in prison. My son was 3 when I went to prison. So when I came home, my son was 15. My daughter was 12. So many years had went by. My son is almost 16, by the time I come home. And I had to sit down with them. And this is why I think that the question that you asked is great, which is in my documentary. But we all sat down when I came home from prison, and I gave them an opportunity to express how my absence made them feel. Mm-hmm. And my daughter said, I felt like you didn't love me. I felt like you were gone. I wanted you to come get me from school. So many different things. And then my son, he was just like, I just wanted you to come to some of my games. And it was so real because it took myself out of 12 years of just trying to survive to actually understand that regardless of what placed me there or the ignorance that placed me there at that time, because I went to prison when I was 22 years old, so I didn't know, you know what I mean? But I was trying to survive while my children were trying to understand. And it was a tough conversation, but it's a conversation to this day that I value. I have a great relationship with my son. He calls me, he loves me. Dad, I love you. You know, my daughter, she's at Livingstone College, got straight A's, hit me up the other day like, Dad, I did it. You told me to keep going. I did it. Wow. And it's just like, but I gave them an opportunity to say how they felt, even though I didn't know how to provide what they asked. And I couldn't go back into the situation to be like, well, my daddy wasn't here. And didn't nobody teach me? And didn't nobody, I had to pick up and go based off what I didn't know. So I would tell anybody who's doing things that they feel is deemed to them, successful for them, right for them, take the responsibility and do what you still don't know you know how to do. Because as long as you show up, that's what is appreciated and valued at the end. You could show up and not know how to do it. Because to a kid, it's just you being there.
Yeah.
And that's what I learned, man. That's what I learned in my absence. So any young man out there having baby mama drama or any of those type of situations, the excuse can't be it wasn't shown to you. You have to walk in the fact that I'm going to do it even if I don't know how.
Yeah. That's powerful, man. I would second that presence is more important than you think. You know, you don't have to have the whole manual. Just showing up is more powerful than you think. I will also want to encourage them to, push past the obstacles, whatever that may be, whether it is as you said, Josh, the relationship with the mother, or the relationship with the child. Even if that child is angry, keep showing up. Keep showing up. Even if that child is not talking to you, keep being concerned. Keep showing up. I will also say that it's no room for excuses. You created that child.
Mm-hmm.
That child is you. It's your legacy, whether you like it or not. And you need to invest in that. And you have, in your lifetime, have had many mistakes. Maybe you may have made mistakes, but you can really keep your child from making those mistakes if you are honest, and if you are transparent, and if you don't mind sharing your testimony. My mother, number one, never talked bad about my father. Never. Never. She let me find out things on my own, and then she confirmed them at a later date once I brought them to her. She always encouraged me to reach out to him. And the bottom line is that if you do have a child, you need to also financially support as much as you can. Because at the end of the day, there's this thing about, again, I'm very familiar with the friend of the court or child support or all of that stuff, right? Yeah. Very familiar with all of that. I remember my father going to show cause hearings and having warrants out for his arrest because he wasn't paying. I think, I don't know if this is in the United States, but I know in Michigan, you can't have a passport. Some of your licenses get taken, certain things when you're not paying your child support. You might have a warrant out. Guys, just listen, just contribute, whatever you can do, and don't hold it over the person's head. and just be there in whatever way you can until you get it right. It's a perfecting process. It's something that is not always going to be perfect, but your presence is way, way more important than you think.
Bo, let me say this. Let me say this, Bo. The question you had, great responses, but I think there's another dimension to it, according to what you asked about when the parent is absent emotionally. So, like, my dad was a great provider, but he didn't know how to connect with me emotionally. So, I think in terms of, I think it's really important that men that don't know how to connect to their children emotionally get some kind of support that they can learn how to do that, because there are too many avenues now that are talking about men's mental health and building a relationship with your children. So that's necessary.
Right. Absolutely. Even when you were talking about, being able to provide, when I came home from prison, I was in a $12,000 hole because they were still charging me child support even though I was incarcerated. And I was just like, how? Like, I do understand that I made this responsibility, but how, when I'm coming home, I went to prison at 22, I came home when I'm 34, and soon as I get out, I'm already dealing with a deficit of $12,000 before I could even get a job.
Wow.
And these are the things that, as he says, you have to take into accountability. And over time, by the grace of God, he provided a way for that to be, paid. I think he went back and said about having the relationship with just the mother of the child, because at that time you have to realize that in my particular situation, I was incarcerated. So I left a young lady to raise a child by herself. So in that, it didn't leave the best impression on the mother. And, in my particular situation, going off to prison or different things that happened, it wasn't like I was out in the world and I just wasn't taken care of. It was me being incarcerated and being at a disadvantage due to not knowing how to navigate life, not as an excuse. But now when I come back, I'm only remembered as who I left. So now it's not even easy to build the relationship. But even then, my son's 16th birthday, I went down to his birthday. And because of not mending the relationship with the mother, she told me I had to stay outside on his 16th birthday. But it taught me not to gain bitterness, but for me to gain an understanding that this was a mother who did it by herself. And in her doing it by herself, her feelings were justified. Her feelings towards it were justified. And it was up to me to not try to skip over the one who gave birth, but to rectify that with each mother to the best. The word of God says, live peaceable, if possible, with all men, which means you still got to make an attempt. And in that attempt, what you were just saying, brother, was so good, is just making sure that you at least try to mend that. And by me mending and trying to mend the best of my ability the relationships with the mothers of my children, has made it a lot more easier for me to have communication and relationship with my kids, at the level that I have it now.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. Because as I was listening to you, there was a contrast between the why things were, but then the what it is. Yeah, yeah. And so I think, when you start talking about why, you can pretty much get into the excuse phase, but then you went to the what. This is what happened because of that. And now you can step into accountability, which I think is great, and begin to repair and amend and move forward with that. So I think that is absolutely powerful. But before we close this episode out, for all our listeners, Proby, since your mic is open, tell everybody how they can connect with you through social media, how they can connect with your programs, and then same for you, Brother Roberson. How can they connect with you on social media? You got a ton of programs in Detroit. How can people connect with those programs?
You can connect with me on Josh Proby, JoshProby on Instagram, and then you can also go to my website for our programming. It's Peace, PEACE, the number 4 poverty.org, peace4 poverty.org.
Yep, and you can follow me on Instagram at Coach_JRobe, JROBE, and Joshua Roberson on Facebook.
All right. Well, to our
And
listeners,
Josh, I definitely, as well as Mr. Petaway, definitely want to connect with y'all, man, and see how we can come together and do something down there in Detroit, man. Definitely.
For sure.
right. Well, to our listeners, this concludes another episode of The Lifeline with your host, Barry J. Elliott, Lindsberg Petway, and yours truly, Bo Powell. Don't forget to check us out at www.simplybje.com/The Lifeline, and subscribe and like us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and now TikTok. Feel free to email us and show us some love at the.lifeline.podcast.tv@gmail.com. Again, that's the.lifeline.podcast.tv@gmail.com. Look, we're on a mission. We want to bring light and life into your household, so join us and let us hear your feedback, because it's all about bringing life to you on The Lifeline. Y'all take care.
Thank you for listening to today's episode with host, business expert, and life coach Bo Powell, social media influencer and entrepreneur Lindsberg Petway, and leadership coach and mental health advocate Barry J. Elliott. Join us next week for another impactful conversation on The Lifeline. God bless.